Reddit. When has something you've always done just in case paid off? Took pictures of a job I did. The client was an asshole, and I was pretty sure he would try to fuck me over. Later in the day, I got a call from my office asking about the job. Sure enough, the client called my boss and claimed that I did not do the job and had photo evidence. He was refusing to pay the bill. I responded that the client can go fuck himself, then emailed my boss several of the before and after pictures I had discreetly taken, one in particular that had the client in shot checking on me. "Great job there," was my boss's response. Several years ago my 2008 Ford Ranger died and wouldn't start again. After I got it towed to the dealership, they confirmed that my engine was completely shot. "Don't I have warranty?" I asked, desperately. "Let's see. Oh, it looks like your warranty expired 8 days ago," the lady at the desk told me. "Oh forfu. Apostrophe. Wait, it looks like you did pay for the extended powertrain warranty when you bought it. I guess it is totally covered. Apostrophe. Oh thank Christ." My wife started planning a very expensive, very exotic trip a year in advance. We planned every other weekend, made payments, set up things for my business, and got almost all of it paid off ahead of time. The day before we were supposed to leave, she went to the hospital for an emergency appendectomy. Trip cancelled hours before we were supposed to be on the airplane. Tears were shed. She went through all the stages of mourning. A few months prior she asked me if we should get trip insurance. I was pretty meh, but she's the cautious type. In the end we got virtually all our money back, save the cost of the insurance, and we will be taking our trip in 2 months, as though nothing had happened. TL. Doctor wife got appendicitis the day before hugely expensive trip, but had trip insurance to cover it. When I was a teenager I used to keep a jar of Grey Poppin in my car, just in case someone pulled up next to me and asked for it. You know, like in the commercial. One day, someone did, and I blew their goddamn mind. When you travel, bring one roll of toilet paper in the suitcase, just in case. Last holiday was at an apartment rented through Airbnb, and we did not have a car. We were dropped off by a taxi late afternoon and there was no grocery stores anywhere nearby. Having a tow strap in my car, $40 investment has probably saved me 10x that in towing fees. When I slide off the road in the winter, I hook my car up and then stand on the side of the road with the other end in my hand. Turns out people with big trucks really like to show off how powerful their trucks are. I always leave early to get to work because you never know about traffic. Almost all of the time it just means that I get to work early. However, a few times traffic or road construction, etc., has slowed me down, but in all the years I've ever worked there I've never been late. Cutting it close, yes, but never have I been late. I always bring a bottle of water. I have panic disorder and like to have water on me to make me feel better in case I have a dry mouth, coughing fit or some other symptom of a panic attack, and at the time was really afraid of getting stuck in a bad elevator in my building. I got stuck for 1 hour that day with my 2-month-old son. I brought my water just in case thankfully, and my phone. Firefighters had to rescue me as the elevator company took too long to arrive. When my kids were little they would set out cookies for Santa. One year when taking the bite out of the cookie I shifted it over and created a slightly larger bite. My wife said, "Do you really think he'll check?" I told her it wouldn't surprise me. He's always been legitimately brilliant. The next morning kids are up and they noticed the half-eaten cookie. My son handed me something to eat a while later and snatched it back out of my hands. He walked over and picked up the Santa cookie and lined them up. The dental impression was not a match and Santa lived on another year. Anytime I get out of my car, no matter how sure I am that I have my keys, I still stand there with the door open for at least 5 seconds. This weird habit started after being a young college student with no money and locking my keys in the car multiple times. One time even with the car running. Haven't done it since. I will sit there, feel my keys even, and still give it a few seconds before shutting the door. I always pull/push on a door after locking it. Lucky me, a few weeks ago, I did this, and the door swung wide open. Door frame gave away where the bolt goes. So I went back inside, locked the deadbolt, went out the other door, and then made a request to have it fixed. Had I not been testing, my door would have been left unlocked. And thanks to our uneven ground, the door swings open by itself. So it would have made its way open, and stayed open, while I was out for 12 hours. Before I start traveling on my motorcycle, I make sure my pockets are zipped, and top box shut. 7 times. And then extra at the stoplight / along straight. 2 times I've noticed I haven't done my helmet strap through vigorous checking. Haven't crashed, but if I did I'd probably not be a virgin due to how fucked I'd been. Before leaving the church where I'm a musician, I've always made it a practice to go back to the console one last time to be sure that I've turned the organ blower off. More than once it paid off as I found it still going after services, lessons, or practice sessions. If the organ blower had gone all night it would have overheated, not to mention a significant waste of energy. For my very first auto loan I opted for the gap insurance much to the disapproval of my family who swore it was a waste of $700. After 5 years I was in an accident and the insurance only covered $10k of my remaining $12k balance. That $700 saved me over $1k. And I didn't have to do anything at all after the accident either. It was all automatic. I always get one bus earlier than I need, because then if it is late, or doesn't show you're still okay. One day I got to work to find my colleagues panicking, because my dad had called, he couldn't get hold of me, off button on my phone had been caught, and was worried, because he'd seen that a bus on my route at about the time I'd be traveling had been smashed into by a lorry at a crossroads. If I got the bus I needed, I would have been on it. As it was, I was already in the city by the time the accident happened, and was calmly having a coffee as chaos was developing around me. I keep a spare door key underneath my car. It's stuck to the bottom with a pretty powerful magnet and you'd have to know where to look to find it, so no worries of burglars. This is in case I lock myself out of my car with the keys inside. It actually hasn't happened to me yet, but one day I was like 18 and was left alone for a week with my dachshund. He seemed to be getting bored of me walking him around the neighborhood, so I decided to drive him to the local college campus for a walk so he could meet some new people. He loves new people and pee on new bushes, also loves new bushes. Well, the town itself isn't super dog friendly, so despite him being rather small I can't take him inside anywhere and there isn't any restaurants with outdoor seating available. I wasn't in the mood for like the Mikey drive-through, but it was a hot summer day, so I couldn't leave the dog in the car even for a few minutes. Well, I blasted the AC and left him some water in a bowl and locked the door from the inside so he could stay cool and I didn't have to worry about the car getting stolen. I got it to go, so I wouldn't be long, but I get paranoid about leaving my car unlocked even for 10 minutes. Used my secret door key to get back in, and shared some of my bacon with him for being good, and not peeing on the seats, and then we went to the college to have fun. Look both ways when crossing a street, even though it is a one-way. When I was kid my dad and I were leaving our house, which was on a one-way street. About a block down we see this car coming down the wrong way really fast. My dad was luckily able to swerve to side and avoid having this guy ram into us. A few seconds later we hear sirens and see lights as a bunch of police cars come down the street. My dad got out and started gesturing with his arms and yelling at them that the guy turned into the alley. After that day I started looking both ways, even though a street is one way, because you never know if something crazy is going to happen like that. It's come in handy a couple of times, although with crazed criminals barreling down the street, just idiot drivers that didn't realize they couldn't go that way. I guess buying premium health insurance. Parents kinda just convinced me to keep my insurance and to use it for the extra benefits like opto and dental. Had stomach cramps one day, was sent to the ER, did an MRI and ultrasound, no causals and fixed with an eye drip. Special note at the bottom, please refer to urologist, kidney is shaped abnormally. Next minute, stage 2 kidney cancer, and within a week, had open surgery and kidney removed. I only paid $2k excess for my insurance, but the procedure was worth $45k. Some of it was comfort, since it was a private hospital. Private room, personal attending nurse 24/7, 5-course meals, that I didn't eat at all, discovered the joys of Jello and Rahab. I was only 24 years old. Taking toilet paper on holiday. My grandma used to squash 2 under her mattress and pack them in her suitcase just in case. People always think I'm a weirdo and say backquote, but hotels have toilet paper. I can't even tell you how many times I've had to call on that emergency toilet paper. I always kick my shoes before I put them on to scare out any critters that might be inside. Pretty unusual habit for my area. One morning I kicked my work shoe and a $half-sized monster that looks like it could have been the spider that ate Frodo came running out of my shoe. I cringed thinking about what that unexpected, pokey, squishy, wiggly crunch would have felt like beneath my socked foot. I have to approve certain things at work. There's a rule you can set to forward your approvals to someone which you set when you're on vacation. For 8 years, I always set the rule to forward them for a day longer than I was going to be on vacation just in case something happened. You can take this off as soon as you get back. 2 times this year my flights were cancelled coming home and I couldn't get out until the next day, and it saved me and my employees a giant pain in the ass. When I lived in Tennessee I always used to park maybe 100 yards or so further away from my workplace in a different lot so I could be on high ground. The normal parking lot was really close to a creek that swelled and got really turbulent every time it rained. My co-worker said I was paranoid, worrying about flooding. One day we had a big storm and the lot flooded. 2 of my co-workers' cars were destroyed. The cars were half submerged. I lived abroad in London several years ago. I brought several of my own toiletries because I didn't want to pay for new ones when mine were perfectly acceptable. Plus I have a lot of skin allergies and need certain products. I brought my own toothpaste and the dentist whom I went to 3 times while there, I ended up having a lot of dental issues come up. Said I was smart for bringing American toothpaste because it had more fluoride in it than British toothpaste. I also lived in Israel a few years ago and brought an entire suitcase of toiletries. I did not have to buy a single toiletry the entire 10 months of living there. I don't know enough Hebrew to read the products, so having my own stuff helped me due to my lack of the language. Plus this was a good way to make friends. I was known as the mom of my group since I had everything anyone could ever need. Honk before I reverse a vehicle. At least once a kid has ran away from the back of my car. On my work software there is a tiny little field where I can put in about 50 characters worth of notes before I finish an application on a client account. Hardly anyone ever uses it, and I cannot fathom why. I have noted receipt numbers, major purchase orders, cost agreements, all kinds of stuff, and it has saved my ass. Every now and then a new person takes over an existing account and they audit it. Without fail I will get them at my office demanding to know why certain transactions/payments were made. The notes back me up every single time. One lady wanted me to personally reimburse her for nearly $30k worth of camera equipment. Check notes. Found original purchase order. It was her damn signature on the receipt. Suck it. Keeping a baseball bat next to the bed. Figured it was overkill and would probably never need it. Then a guy broke into our house while we were sleeping a few months ago and arrived at our bedroom door before he realized someone was home. I've never been so glad to have a weapon on me. There was one of those dog tag engraver machines at Walmart. You could get a dog tag for like $8 or something pretty cheap. My mom said we didn't need one for our puppy because he's always at home, but I convinced her anyway. We engraved this cool American flag looking one and came home and put it on him. Next week he gets hit by a car, escaped from a friend's house we were visiting. Some passerby managed to pull him to the side of the road and called my mom's cell. He's a Darkson for size reference. We were at Olive Garden, but she ran out and drove to where he was to pick him up. He was in the passenger seat bleeding and non-stop crying. Was so sad to watch. Multiple surgeries and $8,000 later, he's doing fine. If we didn't get that dog tag, he wouldn't have been alive today. This was about 10 plus years ago. When I purchased my very first car, I added on loan insurance. At first all I heard it covered was death and disability. Sounded very non-necessary at the age of 20, but whatever. It was only a few bucks added on, so why not? Sometime later, I had unfortunately lost that job and went through my reserve before I found another job. I went to my bank who I had the loan through and asked if there was any way to skip 1 month payment on the car. It turned out that loan insurance not only covered 6 months of my auto loan payment, except for interest, it also covered 6 months worth of my credit card that I had with the same company. Ever since I also overpurchase, within reason, insurance, which came in handy for a later incident with my auto insurance. Always get insurance, just in case. I live in Manhattan, NY, and have for most of my 35 years. I'm a tiny little Italian girl and rely heavily on public transportation. Subways and buses all hours of the day and night. I put all my cash in my bra at all times. I figure if they try and mug me, I'd always have my money. Well, it happened once, middle of a weekday rush hour on Subway. Rarely happens, and it was a day I had a lot on me. Is able to replace everything, and did not get hurt as I didn't try and fight giving up my purse, as I knew I had all my cash on me. Best habit ever. Keep my copy of my apartment lease. I've been in the same apartment complex for 4 years and I've signed a 1-year lease every year. Every fucking 6 months, after I sign a new lease I get a letter telling me my 6-month lease is up, and they will be raising my rent. Every time I tell I signed a 1-year agreement they ask me if I have a copy of my lease. I'd move from this poorly managed complex, but the location is great. I always lock my car with the fob key and listen for the beep. The one time I didn't listen for it was in a Six Flags parking lot. I went through the whole day with friends, had a blast, and came back to my car to find out that I left my door open. My car had also gotten robbed of about $400 worth of items. For most newer model cars, they won't lock if all the doors aren't closed, and therefore won't make any noise when you lock it with the remote. It's a really small thing to do every time you lock your car, but it can really save you from all sorts of trouble.